Alright, and welcome to episode 23. So, just as we left off last time, we were 207 miles in, and that puts us right here. I don't even know why I really put so much emphasis on trying to explain where we are on the map every single time, as if there's gonna be a colossal difference every single time we travel 10 miles. But obviously, we're passing through this mountain range and into the deeper section of Alaska, close to the town known as Wise Man. And after that, we're going to be going to the town of Coldfoot. And then, well, basically, we're going to go to Fairbanks. And we're going to also be passing this town called North Pole. So the people in Alaska sure know what they're doing when they're naming their cities. They got some very creative people up there. Now, this is not Halloween, and I am 2 days late, so that's nice. And but anyways, regardless of that, I'm going to be basically making this episode solely the scary story episode, since I was supposed to do it on Halloween, which doesn't exist anymore. And so yeah, with all that said, I'm going to just basically dedicate this episode to basically a couple stories that I've experienced, or of times in my life that I've experienced, that have been truly times that were extreme enough to warrant me to have my entire life scarred to some extent. They were very definitely terrifying and life-changing experiences. What was that splash? What the heck? Oh. Oh my god, okay. So, just bunnies are just jumping in here and drowning. Alright. I never understand how this landscape has so many large caves and caverns. It's actually kind of crazy now. I don't know why this road turns. That's the thing. Because I marked on the map exactly where I thought I was, and it was right here. But apparently, we actually just might be right here. Like, because if we're doing this, yeah, I guess we are. We have to be. We have to be turning. Yeah, so I think that's where we are. So we're actually, man, we are 210 miles in, which makes the last episode the official longest episode of, no, sorry, the official most progress made in a single episode ever. Now that's pretty impressive. I think that's got to be close to like 16 miles. I don't remember where we started, but you know, it's got to be something like that, because I thought we traveled 15 miles, and this is definitely farther than that, so. Yeah, because the map generally likes to assimilate that these big river areas right here are indeed, let me just show you this on the side, are indeed ice for whatever reason. So yeah, I thought that this ice was the lake over here, but nah, doesn't really make that much sense since we're turning like this. So that's where we are in this episode, and so I'm going to get started with these stories. I even took the liberty into preparing the specific music to enlighten, or I should say darken, the atmosphere, and hopefully make it a lot spooky and whatever the word, cringy word you want to use for it. All I know is they're pretty strange stories that have happened to me, so yeah. Now, the first one, I guess we'll have to do chronological order, because maybe that makes the most sense. Oh yeah, I love ice. I could just run across like here. It takes like half the time. Yeah, I don't even know actually the exact chronological order these stories happen in, but the first ones really started like maybe in the time when I was like in 6th grade. At the very earliest. They weren't any... Oh no, don't do that. Now my feet are just complete ice now. They weren't any earlier than 6th grade, so usually the time you're in 6th grade is when you're like maybe 12 years old. So about 12 or 13 years old was when the first oldest stories of today's episode took place. Yeah, this is definitely where I think I am right now. So that's nice. And by the way, the only cheats I'm going to be using in this whole series, in this whole game, is just toggling the downfall sometimes, because for whatever reason this world likes to just completely kill itself whenever it starts snowing, and it just doesn't work. It just simply starts to freeze, and the things won't load, but only sometimes. strangely. When I load the world and it's like raining or snowing, in this case obviously snowing, because that's the only biome we're going to ever be in for a long time, it starts to just make everything just really stop working that well. So sometimes I'll have to do toggle downfall, but that's pretty much it. But anyways, back to the first story. Now, I'm debating on whether or not I should make my first story one of two, because they both happened in nearly the same period of time. But I'm going to assume that the first one happened before. So, the first one takes place at the science camp, or the science place that I went to in 6th grade, which, if you've been watching this series, you would know I've explained in great detail what actually took place during that. And at the same time, if you're brand new, I don't want to just leave you in the dark, but I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again to people who aren't new. Well, generally, it's like the science camp in 6th grade, and maybe they do it with other people that are in 6th grade, regardless of what country you're in, where you go out into the forest for a week and study scientific things for reasons, because the teachers got bored or whatever, and they want a reason to just maybe smoke weed secretly in their cabins while they just give these kids boring homework for a whole week, and also their families have to pay $500 a pop just to go on it. It's just one big expensive and overly long field trip, pretty much. And nobody liked it, so that was nice. And well, this is kind of like a very somewhat wealthy community, so they can afford $500, and people were at the very least capable of paying it. Okay, we're getting a little bit loud over here. No, too much scary. Yeah, okay, well, we're not getting scared yet. Okay, come on, I'm just trying to explain. I'm making the background here. Come on. This is why I want to choose specific music. It would just have like these just extreme climaxes during like times that just nothing was happening of any scary things. I'm just like talking normally and the music's just like that's not good. So I tried to choose the best music possible. But anyways, this science camp was 7 days long. Actually, no, it was 5 days. It was just a week, one single week, from Monday through Friday. Now, this particular incident, took place on the second night, which was the night right after we went on this hike through the forest. And it was called the night hike, where they took the children that were there and they went on some kind of scientific exploration in the middle of the dark wilderness, where there were a bunch of literal bears and things that are definitely not that dangerous at all, in the middle of the jungle, pretty much. And, well, no one liked that either, because they're just all a bunch of scared little punks that were just in, like, middle school, so. But anyways, nothing happened of any particular interest during that, but they basically had this bedtime, which was assigned to all the people, regardless of what grade you were in, and you had to go to bed at around 10 o'clock, which was actually quite late, considering, well, it was actually later than usual, than what I was particularly used to. But at 10 o'clock, everyone was asleep, and there's just no, like, if, ands, or questions about it. Like, you just can't argue about it, you just have to be in bed, and in all the cabins, all at once, there's multiple cabins set up around the entire campsite. And each cabin is separated into 4 different compartments. You enter it, and then there's just like 2 hallways that go straight down the center. And in between those 2 hallways is like the bathroom areas. And now and to the right and then the left, it's like this long box building. That's basically what they were. To the left and right of those hallways, it was like a 4-square kind of organization. It's a quad setup. There's 4 different rooms. One on the top, bottom, and then on the right, or right on the bottom and on the top. Whatever, I think I'm explaining this too much. I think you can understand. Maybe, just maybe you can understand. Each one of those rooms was capable of doing quick math, exactly 6 people, because there was a bunk bed on the right and on the left, and then not parallel. What's the word that's not parallel? Like, just not the same direction, whatever. Like, I'm not a scientist. What am I, a scientist out here? Like, just not the same direction, on facing the other wall, whatever. And, so yeah, obviously, 2 times 3, that's 6, so 6 people could be in each room. And that meant that, each person had to have one separate assigned person that they were sharing the bunk bed with, like, you know, not in the same bed, like, I mean, like, you know, above, like, what, oh my god, what's wrong with me, like, I can't just, you get it, like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so, now the one I was in was, facing, or not facing, like, it's just up against the window wall, where there's this window with, the shades and the blinds and whatever, and, I chose the top side of it, and not the bottom, because I felt like I wanted the top bunk, living the high life. I'm not no bottom feeder with the bottom bunk or anything like that. I like being high, not low, just high all the time. So that's why I always liked high elevation beds. And then the person below me, they didn't have like a full direct view out the window. The window was kind of like midway up in between the separation of where those 2 beds were, if you get what I'm saying. But that meant that my face was directly facing the window if I were to turn to the right. And then they had the shades closed, and it was like these office shades that were not that good quality. They were just these basic dollar store quality, whatever kind of phrase you want to use to describe them, that they had set up, where you just like flick the little thing and then the things go zhup, or they go open zhup. And they always had them shut during the night, obviously. So regardless of that, sometime during the night, I woke up because someone was, well, I heard this like slight movement sound, or this slight disturbance against one of the walls. It was kind of just like a slow pacing rumble. It's like pacing, like just over, off and on, like, and a sequence of times, like almost throbbing, like not in a pattern like a heartbeat or whatever, but just like someone was trying to play the bassinet or some crap against the wall. It didn't really make that much sense. And then all of a sudden, it started moving towards, like, southwise, towards, like, closer to my proximity. And I didn't, like, move over or, like, look around, because no one else was making any sounds. And I did hear lots of people snoring and just, like, sleeping off sleeping sounds, so clearly no one else was around, awake, most likely hearing what I was hearing. So, nothing really much was concerning to me about that yet, until by the time the sound reached my window, in which case it turned into a full-out, just not even debatable, full knocking on the window, which was just like a plain-out, 100% discernible knocking sound straight up against the window, like, you know, straight like. It's like, okay, so now that's great. I'm gonna die. Fantastic. No, I didn't move. I was just frozen. I didn't try to make any sounds because for whatever reason, you feel like it's, well, if I don't make any sounds, then I'll live because the monster can't get me if they don't know I'm here, right? Because that's how it works around here. And obviously, that's not how it works because the knocking kept persisting for about maybe 3 straight minutes. And it was like solid knocking. It was like, it was kind of like sounding more or less crisp, kind of like that. Like, not like it's a solid point of knuckles hitting the window, but just kind of like, you can't even probably hear that, like, whatever, hopefully you hear it. Now, what I could have done was just looked outside by, like, pushing up the little things, and that would not have been the first thing on my priority list, as you can probably imagine. So, without that needing to be said, I didn't do that. But now, after 3 minutes had passed, the knocking kind of stopped for about 20 seconds. And then, just about 20 seconds after that happened, there was this just completely unheard of guttural like screech that happened, like it sounded like it happened just muffled right outside the window, like maybe 100 feet or straight out of the window, as if it was like not directly next to it, but directly in the line of sight if you were to somehow look out and see it. And it basically sounded like I don't know how to describe it. It sounded like a untuned piano mixed in with the sound of a screeching goat, if that makes any explanation worthwhile. That's the best form of description I can phrase for it. It's like if you were to have a completely untuned piano and like something that hasn't been, like a 500-year-old musical instrument, and just start playing like the hokey pokey on it or something, and then just add that in with a screaming goat, and yeah, that's basically right on the dot. And that's what's going on around here. So no one else heard it except me, apparently, because, well, the only other sounds that was going on at that exact time was just more snoring, which made no sense to me, because it's like, what? You're just like snoring? Okay, that makes sense. So you don't care that there's like some kind of obvious goat man or demon outside the frickin' like cabin, and you're just, no, I gotta catch up on my Z's. See you later. Like, that's what it is. I mean, that's what these people were doing. None of them actually woke up, as far as I know, unless they were doing the same thing that I was doing and just sitting there in pure shell shock horror and not really acknowledging anything else. In which case, that's understandable, but I didn't actually talk to anyone after that, so I had, well, quite literally no way of knowing, and no one else brought it up at any other time that my memory can recount that I was aware of, so I didn't tell it to anyone, but I did talk about the story quite a bit in multiple other times. Wait a second, what? Including this one, but this is probably like the 4th or 5th time at most I've ever recounted the story exactly how it happened. So, and then after that, nothing really took place, and the whole rest of the trip was boring. So that was the first thing that happened, which really made me despise in all fathoms of my existence the Force, because every single time up until the point where I was like basically 18 years old, every single time I traversed into the wilderness at any point or extent, no matter where it was, something remarkably stupidly scary always happened to me, like whether it was a school field trip or whether it was just on my own trip of doing random unnecessary things. It always seemed to occur to me that every single time I did that, there was something scary happening to me. And that also goes along straight with the next story, which happened in 9th grade, when I went on another forced trip into the forest, except luckily it was not 5 days long, it was only 1 night long, but of course you still had to spend that 1 night there, because apparently it was like the official trip that was put in place in order to supposedly introduce you to people throughout the school and have a good time, even though it wasn't a good time at all. And you did not have to pay any money to attend this trip. As a matter of fact, you were basically forced to, and your grades would be affected if you didn't, as far as I was concerned. So this trip, you traveled out in a bus even further than where we were last time from the school, and it was like straight up 3 hours into the whole campsite to where the whole thing was set up. And this place was even more just in the middle of nowhere and in the most remote, unbelievable, just completely uninhabited area of land that you could have possibly imagined. Just nothing but these pine trees and just these just open mountain ranges in all directions, with like not even anything but just a single dirt road around. And you go into the campsite and there's these multiple cabin places and these buildings that are separated and spread all around the area like no one's business, basically, like no one had any organization skills or anything. Now these cabins were different from the time when I went to the camp in 6th grade, because these cabins were more expertly built. I guess there was more effort into like putting design into them. They actually look like Lincoln log cabins instead of like just these portable boxes that you would just have sitting on the ground in the old cabin or the old camp. So each one of them had these slanted roofs instead of these flat roofs that what I had last time. And the same rules applied. You had to have a group of people that you were assigned to be with, and you didn't get to choose, of course. I never understood the whole concept of you like not being able to choose things like that throughout school. Like, obviously, the whole reason is like, even when it comes to stupid things like, oh, where you sit in class, like you, or what classes, or who you want to attend some event with, like, no, yeah, like they choose it for you. That I don't understand the whole point behind that. Like, yeah, oh, we can't have you like misbehave. We can't have you like goofing off with these people here. But it's like, don't you understand, man? Like, when you're having fun, that's when you're being the most productive. Like, you know, I'm no freaking bio major. I'm not a therapist, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. And if you're just having a boring time, then you're not going to be doing the best work you could possibly be doing. You know what I'm saying? So, but regardless of that, you didn't get to choose who you wanted to be with, and they basically placed you with a bunch of random people in this cabin that you now had to spend about a whole night with, whether you liked it or not. And one of the people who I was placed with, just happened to be an individual by the name of Daniel, which I was talking about in a couple episodes before this one, and that's because Daniel was the absolute most crazy, just unbelievable person who you would ever find in school. And he was about 20 years old because he got held back about 5 times. And yeah, that was Daniel. And he was in my group, apparently, with 3 other people in there. And each cabin had 2 sections instead of 4 sections this time. You walk in, and you have the center area, where's the bathroom. And then on the left and right, there are these 2 just rooms where you have the multiple bunk beds and all that stuff. Now this time, the really weird, creepy things started happening when it was like towards the end of the night, and the final event was about to take place, where they were essentially inviting everyone to go to this amphitheater or whatever. And the amphitheater was kind of like out in the middle of the literal just nothingness, the nothings of the pine needles and dirt and mountains, and it was just like a full definite like strong hike away down a dirt road into the valley region where there's nothing around and no other light sources. And at night they had, for whatever reason, this setup like event of this play or whatever by the teachers being dressed up in these costumes and acting out some form of like one of the Shakespeare's plays or whatever, because it's supposed to be educational. I don't even really remember or care enough to remember. But the thing that I do remember is sitting in the very back with Daniel, because Daniel, that's his name. Because he was obviously the most entertaining part about being in this trip, because he was by far the most entertaining person in terms of his behavior at the entire school. Now Daniel, despite him being a delinquent and basically very mischievous, he had a strong sense for danger. He knew things that lots of people didn't know because he had experience with a whole bunch of things no one else cared to have experience for, such as hunting, animal behavior, and just forest etiquette, I guess. Knowing how to handle being in the forest and signs of danger in the wilderness or whatever, I guess you can say. And sitting in the back of this amphitheater with Daniel, he starts looking around like nervously, and it was almost like weird to see him like not being like some satirical clown type of a person. He was actually being rather serious on that time right there. So, and basically he was looking around, not really saying anything, but definitely not making his traditional jokes or dark humor type of things that he would be, completely disparaging the school and their ways of doing things and making fun of the teachers or whatever. I don't even know. Sometimes he would even shout out obscene things, but not like too obscene, but like he would shout out like just very cringily funny things. But this time, right now, this was probably at the time when it was really, really late. I don't even remember exactly what it was. But it was pitch dark outside of everywhere in this amphitheater. And he's looking around all of a sudden, and he starts looking behind. He's looking behind, almost like he's trying to find something, like someone spoke to him or something like that. And like he's trying to like hear. Because he had his ear facing the complete nothingness of the wilderness and the dark blackness behind me, and or us. And there was no one else in that final row. We were in the very back, which is at the top of an amphitheater, if you know what an amphitheater is. So, I kind of just said, like, yeah, hey, what are you doing there, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? And he just goes, man, just shh. Just shh. Okay. Nothing unusual there. And he's like listening for something, and then he says like something's like in the forest behind us. Like that's all he said. Like, you know, he didn't say what it was. He was just like, man, there's an animal or something behind us somewhere. I hear it. And I just sense it or something. He was like sensing it. As if he's got like some freaking, I don't know, like he's got like some freaking sixth sense or some crap like that from that paranormal movie meme with that kid saying he sees dead people. I don't know how it works, okay, but he was just saying some stuff around those lines. And I just kind of just dismissed it and not really took it seriously because obviously at the end of the day, this is Daniel, who didn't really take anything seriously himself. As a matter of fact, he himself was responsible for basically all of the mischief and all of the problems in the school. He even caused the school to go in lockdown one time because he robbed the principal's car and started messing around with it in the parking lot and like drifting around in the parking lot, which was probably the most eventful day of the entire school year. But yeah, that's the type of person that this particular person is. But then later on, nothing happened. Like a frickin' grizzly bear didn't just jump out of the frickin' trees and kill us all. That definitely didn't happen. But during the time, I was definitely so just not interested in being there and extremely bored that I probably would have actually preferred that to have happened. But it didn't happen. What happened when the thing started going a little bit weird again was a couple hours later. After we left the amphitheater, we had to be in the cabin just doing nothing. Just, we ended up resorting doing prank calls just to pass the time. But eventually, it was like the last event of the night when it was super late, probably close to 12 o'clock at night. And after we got bored of doing prank calls, we had like this final thing where everyone was invited to the main recreational room, which was this big kind of like cafeteria type room in the main like in the main building of the campsite, I guess. And it was kind of like this weird atmosphere. Like everyone was invited in the whole grade, which was like maybe 100 to 200 people. You all sat on the floor, and then all the same teachers were there again. And they were kind of just like, they started out with some kind of scary atmosphere or some kind of slightly ominous story, or ominous, slightly whatever story, which was supposed to sound kind of unnerving or creepy in some way. And then all of a sudden, it was like some prank or something, and they just cued in the music of Cotton Eye Joe. And they just started like, apparently they turned the whole thing instantaneously into some kind of dance fest. And the lights were cut off, and then like this disco ball started like dropping from the ceiling. And they're like, yeah, this is the final event, like, let's celebrate, like, you know, it's supposed to be some surprise party or something like that. And of course, well, I don't give a frick about parties, like, I don't care, like, I just want to go home and play World of Warcraft, like, And Daniel is just also sitting right next to me as well. And he's like, man, I can't handle this loud music. Like, this is ridiculous. I can't do it. I don't, whatever reason, it's got sensitive ears. So he goes outside, and he stays outside for maybe about 5 minutes. And I'm still in the place, and everyone, I guess, is just... I don't know what they were doing. I want to say that they were dancing, but that's cringe to think that they were just dancing for that long. What were they doing? Maybe they were just... I mean, there was all kinds of stuff. There was like a whole, like, all-you-can-eat food court of now there's, like, snacks and punch and whatnot that people were drinking and eating and whatever. It almost sounds like that cult of where all the people just freaking off themselves like right like that. Kind of scary. But no, obviously that didn't happen. And he comes back in and he's like, yeah, I got bored. But then I started getting bored after about 15 minutes after that because Evan just went off. Did I just say Evan? No, Evan's another... Evan is another person who was in our cabin. Daniel went off and started just, I don't know, talking to someone else or talking to his old classmates who he should have been in the grade of at this point, but he got held back. And then that means I was left on my own because, well, I'm not the type of person who just likes to get down on the dance floor, you know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of like not like that, man. I'm just more just calm down and wanting to just not be around all that hype and just, you know, whatever kind of stuff like that. So I decided for myself I needed some peace and quiet. I needed to go outside and just, you know, enjoy the solitude. So I went outside, and the way the outside was laid out, like there's this kind of like outside hallway that led into the big rec room, and on the right side of this hallway there's this big open place, this big open like this clearing in the trees or whatever, but you could see like the edge of it just barely by the lights that were lit up on the hallway of this place. You could see just barely the extent of the gravel ground that went all the way out towards the trees. And then once the trees went out, once the trees were there, it was just a tree line. And you couldn't see the tree line really at all. It was just very, very dim. But there was this bench that was kind of like just in the middle of the clearing, but not really in the middle of it, just more towards the side of the civilization side, where they had all the buildings and the hallway that led to the giant recreation room. And it was just like this bench right there. So I just went and sat there, and the bench was just kind of facing outwards towards the rest of the forest. And, well, I think you know where this is going. I didn't think anything of it. I'm not scared of the outdoors. I'm not scared of the dark. It's not something that I'm inherently scared of. I just wanted to be out of that cringe dancing whatever frickin' like karaoke crap thing that they were doing in there. So where are we after all? Okay, so we're probably like right here. I sat down on the bench and just started minding my own business and just, well, thinking about what I was gonna do with my, I don't know, like, just my next frickin' like in-app purchase with World of Warcraft. I don't even know what I was even thinking of or what I was interested in at that time. Oh shoot. Crap. But then all of a sudden, I just started having this sensation, like this very real and indistinguishable sensation of just being completely watched from somewhere directly in front of me. Like it just kind of started happening all at once. Like there was just absolutely no denying it. Like, all of a sudden, it was a clear fact to me, without a shadow of a doubt, that there was indeed something watching me. Like, just not even, like, it wasn't even just like, oh, Wouldn't it be weird if someone was watching me? Like, no, it was all of a sudden my mind was taken off of whatever I was thinking of, and I instantly knew, okay, I'm being watched right now. It was like a physical sensation, like a force that was permeating from the very direction of where I knew I was being watched. Whoa, that was a good one. Where I was being watched from, straight out to the force line. That is exactly where it was. And I knew for a fact that this sensation was what it was, because I had never, at any point in my entire existence, up to that point, felt anything like that. But it was all of a sudden something that I knew to be true and completely in existence. I felt the eyes of something, like, watching me. And the eyes that were watching me felt like malevolent eyes, because they had a force to them. Like a force of danger, or a force of apprehension. Because I've started feeling those exact feelings. Someone could watch you, and you don't know it, because they're not, you know, a evil something. I don't even know. Like, if you're being watched, you don't always know. Like, okay, there's a guy like 15.7 feet away from me looking in my direction. Like, no, you don't have that, because it's not a sense that's programmed within your mind. Like, you have some kind of freaking jujitsu type, like, mental Jedi powers or some crap like that. But you know somehow when something is awry in terms of, like, there is something malevolent watching you, or something with not good intentions is looking at you for whatever reason. It's almost like a programmed sense. Maybe it's evolutionary, because you needed to know when that was happening. Maybe if you were being stalked or hunted by some primeval predator that wanted to take your life just because of the natural food chain when you were just a hunter and gatherer, and it just never left your lizard type brain and just always stayed deeply suited with your subconscious, perhaps. But all poetic stuff aside, that's essentially what I was feeling at that one given moment. But of course, even though it was making me extremely nervous, and it was just making me feel confused because I never experienced anything like that before, I pretty much wanted to chalk it off to just me being completely insane, and I didn't actually believe myself or anything like that, so I just attempted to keep my mind off of it until Daniel sat right beside me, like after 10 or something minutes of me being there on my own. And apparently his explanation was that he also got bored again and he didn't want to be there. And it was kind of nice to have another person just sit next to me, because it kind of alleviated that feeling, but not to any full extent, that's for sure. But the thing that really solidified this whole thing was the fact of when he all of a sudden, after like a brief silence of none of us talking about anything, all of a sudden he just said, like, no, I initiated it. I said, it feels like I'm being watched right now. And without any hesitation, without any delay, he was like, yeah, we are. It's coming from the woods right there. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's cool. He's like, yep, I feel that exact same thing coming from right over there in that exact direction. So obviously, either he was just instantly going along with my feeling and just playing along with it, trying to like prank me or something. But regardless of how much of a hooligan, as you can probably say that this guy was, he didn't like mess around like that. He didn't play pranks. He didn't joke around about things like that. He was very stern in his own understanding of things that he did know about, like survival instincts, hunting, forced navigation, whatever, animal behavior. And he had experience with guns and whatnot, and he was just like, yeah, there is definitely something watching us right there in that tree line. Now, that scared me, because it's like, okay, well, I'm not just stupid then. Like, we might die right now. we might be killed by some. I was afraid, like, well, for whatever reason, I kept thinking it was like a person, like as if I just had some knowledge that it was a person. It wasn't an animal. Even though the most logical explanation to it was that it was an animal. Because it's like, well, obviously animals live in the wilderness. They live in the forest. But somehow I just knew that this was a person. Like, there is a intelligence lingering behind it. Like, yeah, because that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't just some... Because the feeling kept on going, like, for ages. Like, it didn't stop. Like, if it was an animal or something, it would have just looked at me and just kind of kept going. This feeling persisted for 20 or something minutes. It was completely merciless and relentless. Just imagine the feeling of it. Like, you're sitting in this bench and you just got this mildly lit up area. And then all of a sudden it's like you feel eyes coming from a completely just dark area. And you just feel it. You know it's there. You just look there, just nothing but darkness. Like, that's just like, nah. Nah. But anyways, nothing happened after that except for when we went back to the cabin and everyone was told to go to sleep. Once again, the same type of situation took place when I woke up in the middle of the night, and my cabin was set up in a way where my bunk bed, I was once again at the top bunk bed. Even all those years later, I need to prefer to be high up, because that's just how it is. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm living the high life, and nothing could change that. But I had this smaller kind of porthole type window which looked outside. And then all of a sudden there was just this big thump against the wall. Like this humongous ass freaking thump that just slammed against the wall. And by the way, I was probably just already asleep. I mean, I was already awake when it happened, because I hardly got any literal sleep that entire night because it was just the worst conditions ever. It was just an extremely stuffy and not ideal condition whatsoever to sleep in. And this time, I actually did look out the window because I had no reason not to. There was no blinds on the windows. And, well, all I saw was that there was just this kind of darkened shadow that was moving through the forest, kind of like maybe 50 or so feet from the cabin place. And I don't know if what I was seeing was actually moving, or if it was just like my eyes that were just doing like these weird shapes that move around when you're in pure darkness. But I could have sworn I saw like some elongated shape, especially when I looked away. Because it's like when you're trying to look directly at something in the dark, it doesn't work. And when you're looking away, you can almost see it better when you use your peripheral vision. And this thing was like, especially when I was like looking this way, it was like moving. It was like just jaggedly moving. So that's what made me feel like it was something actually there. And the next morning, there were these two sticks that were like really jammed straight up into the ground, like really hard. These sticks were just like, they had to be multiple feet deep. And, well, Daniel's the one who found them. And they were organized in this big X. And it was like these two big branches, or these two big big twigs, not twigs, but big sticks that were just like 6 feet long, that were jammed into the dirt. So there you go. I mean, that's that. I mean, there was it the Bigfoot? Was it Goat Man? Was it Slender Man? The world will never know. This mystery is unsolved. But yeah, I mean, this isn't like, you know, a traditional thing that you would hear, you know, like in some horror movie or some cliche type thing like that, where it's like, oh, I saw this monster. Like, nah, never saw anything in any of these cases. It just kind of happened and nothing happened after that. It was almost like both of them were just, well, horrific dreams or something like that. Just very Not delightful experiences. Also, Daniel said himself he was in the cabin on his own, alone, for an extensive amount of time at one point. And he apparently said that he heard a clap, like above him. Apparently, like he was just alone in the cabin, and he was just like minding his own business, and he just heard I can't do a good clap. Whatever, like something like that. Which is like, I don't even know what to say about that, but alright. You could add some ghosts into the mix too. I mean, that I can't verify because I obviously did not see that happening. And by the way, that was before Daniel was even at the final party, which was at the recreation room, because I forgot to mention he didn't want to go anyways to begin with. He wanted to stay back in the cabin all on his own because he didn't like the people there or whatever. But he only showed up like 20 minutes later, and that's when all the rest of the story happened. And that's when he told me the reason why, because he didn't want to be there alone after that. So yeah, those were some pretty horrifying experiences for me personally. Another thing, back earlier, maybe I was 12 years old, I went on this one camping trip for a school science project, but it wasn't a school field trip or anything like that. And this one was really scary to me because basically, I'm not even gonna like explain the whole entire story because it's just kind of pointless. I was going with a couple of friends of mine, and we were going into the Angeles National Forest, and we were just doing some science experiment, some like the way trees were reacting to different climate during the year, and we were going to set up some kind of time-lapse technology to come back later on and pick it up and see how it was going to change. Something about it was going to change, and write down our experiments. But at some point during the trip, we were taking pictures and stuff going on this like hike, because there are all kinds of hiking trails through that area. As you know, like there's hiking trails all throughout, like those mountains that go up in that particular place. Now one of the pictures that we took of it was a selfie of us looking over this cliff, and in the background there was just this smudgy kind of dark figure that was just standing there in the brush. It wasn't a smudge on the paper or the picture, because the paper. We're taking the pictures with the iPhone, so it's not like it's a digital camera. It wasn't a defect with the picture because it was a person. You could clearly see there was a person standing in the brush. Like this was down the trail, like not down the trail, but it was off the trail. It wasn't on the trail. Like they were on the side of the mountain in the middle of the brush, and you could see it because we were taking the picture looking out the mountain, so you see the view or whatever. And then on the other side of the trail, it's just the continuation to the mountain. You get what it is, right? And then down the slope, there's this person with no identifiable features, just this dark outline with like with just a head-shaped object on top of it, in the forestry or in the brush type of area, just literally facing directly at us. And the weirdest thing is that we took a lot more pictures in that particular area, and none of them, other than that specific one, had any of that happen. There was no... Other than that, there was nothing, essentially. And there's no explanation for that to this very day. This was when I was in 7th grade, by the way. So yet another time when basically me being out in the forest is not a good idea, so... So yeah, in general, like, just me being outside in the great outdoors is not so great at all. The great outdoors doesn't find me to be too great. Another supernatural thing that has happened to me has been some of the things that have taken place in this very house that I live in, which is something that I forgot to mention. That the house I live in is very peculiar and strange at particular times. One of the incidents took place when I was sleeping here, and I woke up, and this was only about 2 years ago, and there are these, like, crazy bright lights outside my window. Basically, the way it is my bed is aligned to face directly at the window, the one window in my room, and the window is kind of like facing the perpendicular side of the house, where it's just, you see the wall's facing this way, but the rest of the house goes that way. So you see this way, and there's a patio area, like, right here. So you could walk around in this area. So you're looking out this way towards the front of the house. So this window was facing basically the entire side of the house. I woke up and there are these just crazy assortment of lights that were just like flashing right outside my window. Like it was like a literal disco party. Except the difference is that these lights were vibrant in a way that I can't really describe. It's almost like they were the style of lighting that made the particular shades of each color like just not really anything you'd ever seen before. Almost like you're seeing colors you've never seen before, but they were. It was like green and red and blue, but it wasn't green and red and blue. I don't know how to describe it. It was like these different offsets of shades, but they were all just kind of happening all at one time. It was like all the shades of green combined into forming the green, if that makes any sense. But at the same time, it was almost like if you could look into like an interdimensional portal, like that's kind of like what it would look like. But it was like there was no sound or anything. It was just these flashing lights. Like, man, some freaking interdimensional aliens are having a disco freaking party outside my window. Like, I'm not invited here, and I'm not inviting them. What the heck, man? There's no music either. These deaf freaking interdimensional aliens are having a disco party outside my window. But that's not what I was thinking. Obviously, I was once again just frozen in fear. This is not sleep paralysis, by the way. All these experiences, not sleep paralysis. I know what sleep paralysis is, so if anyone ever watches this video and they're like, oh, well, that's just, that's sleep paralysis, just so you know. No, it's not, because I was not freaking paralyzed, and I could move freely, and I had no problem with it. So don't be all trying to tell me like that. Like, no, I don't think so. We don't need any scientists out here trying to debunk this kind of stuff. You can try to debunk it if you want. I mean, I don't know. I want an explanation myself. But, yeah, these lights just kind of flashed over and over again. And they were just moving around the whole window. And there was not really a source of them. I couldn't see what was emitting them. They were just basically flooding from the outside the window somewhere. And the thing that really makes the story short and sweet is that, well, unfortunately, I don't remember at all what happens after that, because everything just cut off. It was just nothing but black, and then I woke up the next morning. But it was not a dream, because I specifically know that I was wide awake and I was experiencing it. You know the difference between dreams and real life, unless you have certain medical conditions. Like, dreams are fuzzy and you have like this emotional feeling when you think about them. Real life is like, well, it's just real life, like you just know it. So I know this happened in real life. And it's like, well, could I have been abducted by aliens that night? Well, quite possibly yes. But I personally don't think so. I really don't know what it was. But another weird, strange thing that took place in this house was a little bit less directly strange and more just kind of funky and weird in a unusual way. Randomly, one time in my backyard, I just started finding these tennis balls. But the way I found them was that I started hearing these like thumps, these pitter-pattering thumps on my ceiling, just kind of like once every couple of minutes one day. It happened one day. Just like thump, bounce, 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 thump, bounce, bounce, bounce. These tennis balls just thump, bounce, 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 like someone's throwing them at the house, but over the house. And I didn't really know what it was, but a couple days later, I started seeing all these tennis balls in my backyard. There's like maybe 5 to 10 tennis balls, just like all spread around the backyard, which is like, all right, that's cool. I personally like tennis balls. I like messing around with them because they're fun to play with, like I'm a freaking dog or something. So yeah. So I was bored at a specific time during the day, and I picked one up just for the heck of it. I just brought it inside and started messing around with it. And it was just a normal tennis ball. It wasn't overly cleaned. It wasn't dirty. It was just a normal everyday Penske tennis ball. And I was bouncing it around one day, and all of a sudden, 'cause I like bouncing balls around. I like fidgeting with things as I think about things. It just makes everything easier, you know. I was just messing around with it, bouncing it up and down, like bounce. I was trying to do the spin thing where it's like bouncing and spin, but it would like, I would throw it this way, but it would come back this way. You know, so I like spin it like this, like some kind of cool trick. Like, wow, isn't that cool, guys? And all of a sudden, I threw it down on the ground normally, like this shit, and I heard a thud, like it hit the ground, but it didn't come back up. And I wasn't looking at the ground when I threw it. Obviously, I was just kind of like looking up at it. And I looked down where I heard the thud, and it was just nothing. Just gone. The ball's just gone. And, well, there is a couch, and there was all kinds of furniture right near where I was messing around with it. So I was like, alright, so this thing just probably flew in the couch or something. Or it's underneath the couch or somewhere. So I checked underneath the couch, underneath the table, in the couch, cushions and whatnot. The thing's nowhere. It's gone. And there was no second bounce either. It was just one thud, gone. No like bounce, 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 or just even bounce, bounce. Like nothing. It was just bounce. That's it. Done. Gone. Over. And this thing was nowhere. I looked for 13 to 15 minutes straight. Like, it's just gone. The tennis ball's just gone. Okay. I mean, well, crap. No more tennis ball for me. No more tennis balls for me. I mean, it could have still, obviously, it's always possible that it could have just somehow went somewhere. Like, it just flew into the frickin' pillows or something in the couch, but it wasn't in the pillows of the couch. I looked in the couch. It's not there. I looked at every single place. And I'm in the middle of the living room. It's not like this thing could just be like just, I don't know what, I don't know, man. Look, I don't know. All I know is I was bouncing a stupid tennis ball and I bounced it and it's just gone. It just disappears. Like, I mean, what else needs to be said, man? It's a stupid, disappearing, teleporting, interdimensional tennis ball. And then, bruh, this is where it gets stupid, man. It's like, you know, me recounting these stories, it's like people that are going to be listening to this are going to be like, man, this guy's living in frickin' cartoon world or some crap. This guy's living in frickin' stupid land, clown world. But I mean, you know what? It really does feel like that sometimes. Okay, one day I go to the bathroom, I open up the frickin' toilet, and the tennis ball's sitting in the frickin' toilet. Like, the tennis ball is sitting in the toilet. It's just in the toilet. It's floating in the toilet. I went in the bathroom to just go and empty myself. And tennis ball sitting in the toilet. The tennis ball sitting in the toilet. It's almost just so ridiculous that it's not even scary. It's just laughable. Like, it's just like, what? I mean, I don't understand. I couldn't even be bothered to even try to understand this. I didn't touch the tennis ball, by the way. I didn't go to the bathroom for another hour before I finally went back in the bathroom, and I took the thing out, and I just threw it away in the trash. And by the way, when I took the trash out the next day, it was still there. It didn't disappear after that. The thing was in the frickin' toilet. So unless some frickin' person who craps tennis balls just took a dump in my toilet somehow and didn't flush the toilet, the thing just teleported into the toilet. So those are some of the glitches in reality that I've experienced. I hope you enjoyed, because I didn't. That's the most recent thing that happened to me, by the way. That happened about 2 months ago. Yeah, it was by far the most silly and stupid thing. One of the most silly and stupid things that's happened to me. One of the most silly and stupid paranormal things that have happened to me. Out of all the paranormal things, this one's by far the single most stupid one. Okay, well, that concludes our session of scary stories. Back to enlightening and comforting Wii music. Okay, so we're gonna end it off there. I have a pretty certain idea of where we are, but not 100%, so... Yeah, I think we're right about there. Yeah, that would make sense. Do some street view. Street view would always work. Looks like there's not that much snow down here anymore. There's lots of trees, that's all I know. I have no actual idea. I mean, I'm trying to find the slope of where we are. Oh my god, no, what are you doing? Doesn't seem like there's that much of a slope on the left side here, so I don't know where we are, man. I have no idea what this is. Usually it's pretty accurate with that kind of stuff. Does that kind of look like a slope to you? I mean, Alright, well, I'm just going to say that... Because if we only traveled, like, there... That's 9.1 miles. That seems a little bit more realistic. And the amount of time that we spend. Yeah, I'm gonna say that we traveled 9. Yeah. I'm gonna say that 9.1 miles. That's where I'm gonna say we are. So 219. So, well, okay, where are we? 219. Oh, so 219. 445. 445 meters. And now that is 1459. 1459 and 219 miles. So wow, that's cool. Wow. Epic. Isn't that nice? Okay, that's episode 23, and goodbye.